Okay, so let me cover it quickly. Components of emotional intelligence, but we're talking about empathy, right? So the first line says, empathy, not to be confused with sympathy, is what you feel when you put yourself in another person's shoes. Okay, that's usually me. I'm an empath. Then it says, in contrast, sympathy is basically a pity that has been dressed up. What? Like, just to think of it that way. What? When you are empathetic towards a person, you feel their pain and their thoughts. If you are going through a crisis, you go through the crisis yourself. So I definitely feel that because, like, mentally, for some reason, when a person tells me they broke up with someone that, you know, used to talk crap to them, right? Call them a whole bunch of nobodies and nothings and no one will ever love them and all that kind of stuff. Even if I didn't go through that myself, I start to feel like the person that told them that told me that too. And the way that it made them feel, for some reason, it makes me feel like that too. I don't like it. I don't know why I'm empathetic, but I just am. So, yeah, we need to get to the bottom of this. Okay, so now it says empathy is the more committed version of sympathy. Interesting. And this might explain why a lot of people do not have time for it. Empathy calls for time and patience. It is not simply throwing a pity party for someone and then going on their merry way. Empathy demands that you stick around and look for the solution that can reduce that person's suffering because their suffering is your suffering as well. Isn't that something? So if somebody called me a whole bunch of nobodies and called me a whole bunch of names, everything in the book but a child of God. Now I can't help but to figure out, how do I overcome that? Like, then you start questioning yourself, well, why am I this? Or why do I do that? Or why do I call myself this? Or why do I look at myself this way? You know, that person tells you that and you start to harness that. But now you can't get out of it until you figure out, like you can't go on with your day. You can't move on with your life until you figure out how to get out of that as an empathetic person. Like, how to not feel bad. Now you can't help but to think of a solution before you can move on with your life. And it could take months. Like, it could take a long time. Quite often, people use sympathy and empathy interchangeably. Based on our earlier definition, this is both incorrect and misleading. Let's take a look at some examples of sympathy versus empathy. So now it is a kind of chart of empathy and sympathy. Sympathy says, you run into a friend who has been trying to lose weight for the longest time. She looks drained and overwhelmed. You have never struggled with your weight, but you do understand that weight loss can be a tough journey, and you let her know as much. Your friend's mother has been diagnosed with cancer. Your friend is devastated. As an only child, she is extremely close to her mom over a period of about a year. You watch as she struggles to keep up with work demands while being the sole caregiver for her mother. As your friend's mother life ebbs away, you cannot help but feel deep sympathy for both of them. Now, the empathy, your friend later runs into another friend who has tried to lose weight and succeeded. This friend lets your friend know that they truly know and understand what they have been going through because they went through the same thing. The second friend is able to relate and connect with your friend's struggles because they have gone through the same experience. Your other best friend has gone through the pain of losing their parent to cancer. They understand exactly what your friend is currently going through. They can relate to the angst of not knowing how they will go on without their main cheerleader. They know firsthand the devastation that comes from watching someone you dearly love crumble under the weight of terminal illness.